Austin. I had to go to school with my goddaughter.
I don't know how Louis
Deal with her.
is
Oh,
code.
she's a pain in the butt.
How old?
14.
Oh, there you go. Enough said. Good job. Way to go.
What?
That's good.
Yeah, my wife made me. I should turn the mic off. She might be listening.
It's okay. I told her to turn it down.
No, we were talking about the school district.
Okay. Afterwards, I need to talk to you.
I mean, to me, we talked about it yesterday, didn't we?
Yes.
Oh, there are. Oh, okay.
And I want to. I feel like I should respond to the attorney.
No, I'll respond to it.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I
No,
want.
no, no. You don't talk to that clown.
I'm like, I have no way.
If Michelle goes. It's such overkill.
Right.
So stupid. So now, am I in the right place, or do you put some weird name? City attorney. I haven't seen Sunday's episode, so don't talk about it.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. I'll give you a receipt. I'll give you
Yeah,
a receipt. I'll give
I
you
got
a
about a
receipt.
year and a half behind on House of Cards. I've never been able to catch.
You know where to find me.
Because I like
That
it.
reminds me of city council meeting every time. We have to give them a check for health insurance.
Yeah, it's always on, but he turns it all way low. I know. So you get because
I'm sitting next to you.
I'm leaning back.
Example. Yeah.
The only safe thing tonight.
I think that was the, that's just an example.
Steve, we have to ask.
I think that makes things better is, where if we go from, here to the,
Remember?
yeah.
Okay, so just so you have it as reference. No. It was requested. I'm sorry, my bad. Just being
But a B
trying to be
minus
helpful.
at SC was like 40.
And then you saw my other one I put on your table. Okay. That's why I circled it.
Sure, I'm almost done.
Don't know why anybody
There's
tries.
There's gonna be lots of notes.
Well, good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Villa Park City Council. I hereby call the meeting to order. Steve, will you please call the roll?
Okay, Mayor Nelson,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Colacott,
Here.
Councilwoman Fosnelli,
Present.
Councilman Pitts,
Here.
Councilman Rossini. Here. All present.
Okay, tonight I'd like to continue our tradition of having a Villa Park distinguished citizen leading us in the pledge. Tonight we have Dr. Kenneth Tate. Dr. Kenneth Tate was born in Billings, Montana, and he served in the Navy Seabees during the Korean War, where he served in the 10th Naval Construction Brigade Detachment. This brigade handled all construction for the Navy and Marine Corps for all projects west of the continental United States. Being an engineer, in 1957, Mr. Tate was a primary engineer working in a group that located El Gata, #1, the first oil well discovered in Libya. Mr. Tate formed Tate and Associates in 1964. Throughout the 60s, he managed the design and construction of hundreds of gasoline stations throughout California. As time went on, Mr. Tate developed additional design services, including airport fueling systems, fuel bulk plant design, and military facility design. Mr. Tate was an early innovator in air pollution control, holding several patents for gasoline vapor recovery and containment. Many of the technologies he developed are currently employed on a global scale. He has designed and has developed several commercial and industrial projects throughout the western United States. Though he's currently retired now from most daily business operations, the firm is owned and operated by his sons, Tom and Richard Tate. Mr. Tate is very active in Legatus, Knights of Malta, and other charitable organizations. He achieved his bachelor's and doctorate degree from Montana State. He's married to Valletta Almond in 1956, and in 1958 they moved to California. They're the parents of 4 children: Susan Welch, Los Oswegos, Oregon; Tom Tate, mayor of Anaheim; Kenneth Richard Tate, Newport Beach; Elizabeth Erickson, Anaheim Hills; also grandparents of 9 and great-grandparents of 2. They've lived in Villa Park since 1971. I give you Dr. Tate.
Wow.
Careful.
Thank you.
Careful. The court.
I'm looking forward to leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, and it's a great honor to be here with you all. And repeat after me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tate. I have a pen here for a distinguished citizen pen for you. And I'd like for you to take a picture with the entire council, if you guys are okay with you guys.
Remember to move your thumb, Michelle.
I'll get the picture taken and put it on later.
Get up. Okay, ready? I'm gonna count to 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more time. 1, 2, 3. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to say Dr. Tate. Dr. Tate.
Yeah.
Over here. Over here. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. I know you worked closely with my father-in-law, and you were a good friend to the Fasinellis, as well as my husband working at your facilities, and very good friends with your sons, and it's certainly a pleasure after all these years to finally meet you. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I would ask all those in the audience to please silence your cell phones or turn them off if possible. The Villa Park City Council staff welcome you to this meeting and we encourage your participation. If you wish to address the City Council, please complete and submit a speaker card to the City Clerk before the scheduled meeting time. Speaker cards can be found in the entrance to the City Council chambers. Speakers will be limited to a time period of 5 minutes. First, we'll start with presentations, and first up is the Orange County Sheriff's Department.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm pleased to report that we've made some significant dents in some of the crimes that have recently plagued the city, and that last month we reported that there had been a slight spike in crime, which is still pretty low, all things considered, but typically the city experiences anywhere between 3 to 6 crimes a month, and I think we were at 14 for the previous month. But through some hard work between our investigations division and our patrol deputies, we made an arrest of significance in regards to some of the recent residential construction burglaries that have been occurring. And after we made that arrest, we noticed a significant drop in those numbers of crimes. So we're pleased to report that, which leads me into this month's, I don't want to curse myself here, but unusually low crime statistics. Typically for the summer, we expect crime to be on the rise. For June, however, crime was significantly low, with a total of 6 crimes being committed in Villa Park, which is what we like to see. The first one was a shoplifting, where a suspect was consensually encountered off of Juan and Santiago by one of our patrol deputies, and during that consensual encounter discovered that they had numerous stolen items in their purse that they later tracked back to one of the local establishments. So that person was arrested for shoplifting by some proactive work part of our deputies. We had a commercial burglary off of the 9,000 block of Santiago, where suspects broke into a business and took landscaping equipment. We had a residential burglary off of the 10,000 block of Carmel Drive, where a suspect entered in through a rear bathroom glass door and took numerous items from the residents. We had 2 grand thefts, one off of the 9,000 block of Cannon Street where a package was taken from a porch, and off of the 18,000 block of Hillcrest where guarding equipment was taken from the back of a work truck. We also had 1 petty theft where an unattended purse was taken from a local restaurant by an unknown suspect. That's the summation of your crime report. Now, I'll tell you, unless things drastically change within the next 6 days, crime right now is trending to be even lower for the month of July, which again is a little unusual because we expect a rise during the hotter summer months, but it's trending down right now, and that's something that we like.
Good.
Are there any questions?
I don't have any questions. I have a minor discussion. I did have a compliment come from the few residents about how the sheriffs are dealing with urban campers coming into the city. And there's been a few on the Greenbelt. There's been a couple here, and they've witnessed how the sheriff's department has dealt with them, and they're pleased. They're also pleased with the response when they call. So it's something that is important to them, that when they do call, that you come immediately, so that that they don't establish roots wherever they're laying. So I'd like to tell you that right now the residents are very pleased that when they've called, you have taken care of them in a very nice manner, move them along to where benefits can actually be provided to them.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Orange County Fire Authority.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, City staff. My name is Dave Spencer. I'm one of the newest battalion chiefs here to the battalion, serving the area of Villa Park and Tustin as well. Happy to be here. I want to bring 2 things to your attention this evening. First, I'd like to just share an overview of our call data for this last month. That reflects 33 calls for service, 20 of which were medical aid in nature, 2 false alarms, 6 undetermined, and 5 other calls for service. So as my counterpart has explained, we too are also in kind of a lull, I would describe, as far as numbers of calls for the area. That being said, as you know, we are in the midst of fire season. We have a significant group of folks that are assisting with large fires throughout the state. Fortunately for us in this area, we haven't seen any significant activity as of yet, and so we hope to continue that. So what I will share with you is just a reminder to the community and the staff as we move into the summer months, and just a quick note, and I'll be brief about barbecue grill safety. I just want to remind folks that propane and charcoal barbecues are to be used outside only, and to keep them away from your home and eaves and decks and railings and garages. We recently had an incident that a fire extended into a property in a different city, and so I think it's important to note. Never use grilling equipment inside, and that is simply because of the carbon monoxide. It is colorless and odorless and poisonous, certainly, and without proper ventilation, people can be significantly harmed and certainly lose their life. I want to remind you to keep children and pets away from the grills, and check your tanks and hoses for any leaks prior to use. Just a general overview. If you have any other questions about safety issues, you can visit our website at www.ocfa.org. And that concludes my report. Any questions?
No questions?
No question.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have council meeting attendance reports, starting with the Orange County Mosquito and Vector Control District, which would be me. And we had a meeting last Thursday. We didn't have very much on the agenda. We had one thing where it did amend our investment policy for 2 new investments. One was Cal Trust, and the other one was Wells Fargo Advisor with Sandra Wheeler. So following our lead and getting the same kind of investments we have here. And what they did to district manager's contract, they extended his 4-year contract for additional year, gave him a 6.7% salary increase, and increased other minor benefits. That concludes my report. Is there any questions?
How do you get a job there? Get a raise?
Well, this was his first year. You know, the executive committee negotiated with him and brought that back to the board, and the board approved it. Next is Orange County Sanitation District.
And that would be me. The Sanitation District Board of Directors met on June 28th, and the key agenda items were collection system maintenance and reconstruction, particularly a undercrossing under the Lane Channel, which is parallels the San Diego or the 405 freeway by John Wayne Airport. Treatment facility maintenance and conducting a seismic hazard study of the treatment plant. I also attended the Operations Committee of the Sanitation District on July 5th. The agenda addressed items related to ongoing facility maintenance and operation of the collection system and the treatment plant. Under the heading Sound Finances and Increasing Efficiency, the General Manager of the Sanitation District sent out a note that strategic planning is set to begin. The Sanitation District's strategic planning efforts were kicked off in April when Brent Ives, facilitator for the strategic plan, interviewed several board members, and the efforts will continue this month when our facilitator returns to lead a strategic planning workshop to engage employees and participate in the annual planning meeting next month. The input and information gathered during the strategic planning process will be incorporated into the General Manager's 2017-2018 work plan and strategic plan update that will be presented to the Board of Directors in the fall. I mention this because this is parallel to the strategic planning effort that our council is currently involved with. That concludes my report.
Any questions for?
Councilman Colacott, those meetings that you go to,
Yes.
How much money does a person get paid to go to that when you're assigned to it?
It works out to about $400 a month.
Okay, so it's per meeting?
Yeah, there's a fee per meeting.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Orange County Fire Authority, their meeting is this Thursday, so I don't have anything to report at this time. Orange County Library Advisory Board?
No meeting.
No meeting. Orange County Budget and Finance, no meeting. Community Development and Public Safety?
No meeting this month.
Human Resources?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of our staff and the community. On July 7th, the Human Resources Committee met to discuss city manager evaluation goals and expectations, kind of in the initial formulation phase of how we review our city manager, and we will be meeting again this Friday to discuss it further. Nothing really further to add.
I have something to ask about that. The city manager's position is, the city manager is governed by the 5 of us here. Why was that issue taken only to a committee without coming into an agendized closed session council meeting? He's on contract. All of us, we evaluate his contract. He just got hired. Why was that issue brought up at the Human Resource Committee?
So that we can actually formulate standards to be applied rather than willy-nilly as it has been in the past. This matter will be brought forth to the individual city council members in conjunction with our city attorney to make sure that we're following the Brown Act.
The city manager answers to the council, and I would request that anything having to do with the city manager be followed to the protocol by his contract and by his job description, which is it's brought to council, not to 2 individual council members. They do not govern the city manager. All 5 of us do.
It's not the process of governing the city manager. It's developing a process to do the city manager's evaluation and setting his goals, which will be brought to the council when the Human Resource Committee develop a process.
Well, he's a contracted employee, and his contract and his job description lays out what he's supposed to do.
Well, his job description also lays out that he will be given an annual performance evaluation before his anniversary date each year. So we're just trying to develop the process to do that evaluation.
So when would the other council members that weren't involved in the Human Resources Committee be involved in setting some of those policies and procedures and
when we develop a process, a proposed process, we would bring it to the council for the council's discussion.
I believe, I'm calling this like a self-governing committee, quite frankly. The city manager works for all 5 of us. And to have a meeting to discuss how he's going to be evaluated, first of all, the fact that he showed up is very admirable because he shouldn't have. If he had gotten any sort of advice. But I would advise and request, so that we don't get into a legal situation in the future, that anything having to do with the city manager come to this council, and that we have a closed agendized session and we discuss it, whether it's a review, a job description, goals, or a form.
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think you're completely misconstruing what's going on. But I do appreciate your comments, and it will come to the council. Thank
What's
you.
my understanding that there is another human resource meeting, I believe, in the next week or so, and I've seen an 8-page document that's drafted by either Mayor Nelson or either yourself that we have not seen. It came across me, and that already shows you that you are not being forthcoming to this council.
Well, I totally disagree. That doing this process is every human resource committee's responsibility. It's on every council, on every organization to do something like this. And it will be brought to the council when we have a proposal.
Why wouldn't we do it as a working team together?
Why wouldn't we bring everything that we have in committees just directly to the council? Why should we have committees?
Well, that's what this is the first discussion of many tonight, because we're a small city, and all of a sudden, we have 2-man committees that are running the city. And the other rest of the council is not being able to provide any input. In fact, it's coming to council completely done. We will move forward. Those were my comments. Thank you for receiving them.
Oh, we just agree to disagree, so we can move on to City Schools Advisory.
No meeting this month.
Law Enforcement Advisory.
No meeting this month.
Investment.
I have a question along, I read the minutes from the last Law Enforcement Advisory. I just want to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Was there an item discussed to change the resolution of the LEAC committee? Because in the minutes, it didn't state it, nor was it on the agenda.
Insofar as what are you referring to?
Was there any discussion to change the resolution? Because there's a resolution change being proposed tonight, and it was nowhere on the LEAC committee's agenda, nor was it in the minutes. So the chairman, which I believe is Mr. Whitman,
Correct.
Nobody on that committee was notified or even asked about changing the makeup of that committee. But tonight on our agenda is an item proposed by Collicott and Mayor Nelson to change the makeup of the LEAC committee. But the LEAC committee didn't know about it because it's not on the agenda or in the minutes. So I just want to make sure maybe we didn't miss something, or maybe it didn't make it in the minutes.
Councilmember Collicott, do you want to
Well,
discuss this?
the composition of the LEAC is a decision by the city council, not the committee itself.
So we have a chairman and we have a committee that normally you would go to and get their advice, and they advise us and come to us, but at this point you chose not. It was not discussed to change the makeup of that committee. You yourself and Mayor Nelson is going to be bringing up an item to change the makeup of the LEAC committee without advising that committee or the chairman that you've nominated. We'll move on to it further. What I was looking for is to see if there was something I missed. And if it's not in there, it's not in there.
Let's say you didn't miss anything. Let's move on to the Villa Park Investment Advisory Committee, and that would be mine. We met, as we do on a quarterly basis, reviewed the investment policy, and we sent it, that was sent back to the committee from the council last time. We reviewed the changes, approved the changes, and we also made a recommendation you'll find with this, where we want to change it from an annual basis to a triennial basis for review. And at the last council meeting, the council authorized the committee to pursue a 115 trust investment and return to the council with a plan to adopt it. And we formed 2 subcommittees to develop this 115 trust investment plan.
Two ad hoc committees.
2 ad hoc committees, right. 2 ad hoc committees. Subcommittees, actually, is what they are. And they were each look at different portions of the 115 investment trust and come back together and put the entire plan together and have it to the council, I guess sometime by the end of the year.
That's the goal. Yeah,
Yes.
toward the end of the year. That way we have a couple months to do the research and bring it back to our next quarterly meeting in October of the IAC, and then prepare something to bring to council.
Who are the members of that ad hoc, those two ad hoc committees?
It's the IAC members.
Right, but
Oh,
who
okay.
are the members on each of the two committees?
Harold Hewitt, Lynn Doty, and Joe McCarthy are on Subcommittee A with Mayor Nelson, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Subcommittee B is Bill Underwood.
As a chair.
As a chair. Brad Reese, Dan Carlberg, Dennis Kulai, and Mayor Pro Tem Colacott.
Okay, if those names could be reflected in the minutes so that the public knows who's on it, that would be great.
We will. do
But
that.
I have a question on the, also on the investment advisory. At any time, since the minutes aren't yet produced, at any time, was there an issue discussed regarding issuing bonds for the city of Villa Park?
No, of course not. None.
No.
Not at all.
No.
Well, there's an item on the agenda today that will reflect that the budget and finance, as well as the investment advisory committee, may be advising the council to issue bonds. So I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
That there is absolutely no truth that the committee is asking for any bonds.
Thank you.
Not
That
at
I
all.
Truly, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, the Villa Park Community Services Foundation?
I was unfortunately, well, I was out of town and could not attend, so I have to defer to Vince. He was there, I think.
The Community Services Foundation did meet and on June 28th and discussed the replacement of a chair, and Ed Carter was unanimously voted in as the new chair. He's an incredible man. He's a businessman. He's a volunteer and a leader in the community. He has been extremely helpful with Rotary, and he's got some significant shoes to fill, and he's going to do a great job. Besides that, there was more or less just some general housekeeping matters to deal with, PayPal accounting, and a few other things. There was some questions about other rather minor matters, but that's really about it.
Okay, thank you. Any question?
There's also a new treasurer for the foundation by the name of Francine Sawyer, and one of the goals for the foundation is that they are to be more transparent. They have someone in a governance position. One of the board members has taken that over, and they will be reporting to the council with much more detailed reports regarding check registers, documentation, a grant request, and the new treasurer will be having those documents and those reports to us as she takes her new position.
Was there an issue with the old treasurer? Was there something that we need
She
to know?
resigned.
I understand that.
That's the issue. She resigned.
Okay. But your comments allude to something else. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Nothing we need to know about. Is there something we need to know about?
If I had a rewind button, I said we have a new treasurer.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're clear.
Mr. Hosseini, I was there with you, and I think that having a new board member, it's important, and a new position to acknowledge them.
Absolutely, but it's your other comments that kind of give me pause.
Well, did you mention that that on their website, they have other people's tax ID number? You were there. You didn't mention that today. But if you would like to open up the laundry of the foundation, I'd be happy to do that.
No, I'm just want to make sure there's nothing that
You're the liaison,
city
so I
council.
expect you to report to us. Thank you.
Any additional questions? If not, we'll move on to the Friends of Villa Park Library.
We did meet. It was a very short meeting, but I'm going to defer to Deanna because she had a great idea for the Santa Parade that she brought up and is chairing on her own, so.
Well, there's a few things. First, we are having, Friends of the Library are going to be having a fundraising dinner at Young Ching's, which is a tradition for the Friends of the Library. It will be in October this year. The date will be forthcoming. We haven't set it down yet, so I will let you know at the next meeting about coming. I expect the majority of this room to come and have some great Chinese food. And also, they will be donating bookmarkers to the children for our Santa tour, which is the people that the library does serve. So that's something that we're working on, and Santa will be giving away candy canes and bookmarks for it. So we're looking forward to that.
Great way to encourage reading. Thank you.
Any questions? If not, thank you. Thank you for those reports. Now we'll move on to the public comment area. At this time, members of the public may address the council on any off-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council, provided no action may be taken on off-agenda items unless authorized by law. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person and 30 minutes for all comments. Do we have any speakers in public comment? He's want to speak on a particular item. Seeing none, we will move on to our first public hearing. Our first hearing will review to waive reading of the full of all ordinance and resolution on the agenda. Staff, would you give the staff report?
This is the regular resolution we have that allows us to move through our meetings in an efficient manner. It's routine and it's been handled every month on this basis, so we'd recommend approval.
Okay. Council members, do you have any questions of staff? Is anyone here to speak on this hearing? If not, thank you. Council members, is there any discussion regarding this item? If not, do I hear a motion on this matter?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Please record your vote. Dee, would you read the results?
5-0 passes unanimously.
Great.
Are we going to be able to see that on the screen this month? Or
The proprietary rights on the thing, we're still working on a glitch because we have to have the technician. We'll give it, but it won't be on the screen today. We will have that in the future. The screen as it would show up right now would be white on white, so it would be a blank screen and it wouldn't show much. But we will be providing that. Like I said, the software is proprietary, so we can't engage ourselves and make that change. But we are engaging them. They know we want it, and they've asked. They will be responding. But it's just a matter of working through that. So we hope to have that by next month. I apologize. We'd hope to have it by this month, but we just weren't able to make that all happen.
Okay, our next hearing is consideration of resolution number 2017-3393, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Villa Park declaring its intent to conduct a public hearing regarding conditions present at 10101 Center Drive, Villa Park, California, to determine whether such conditions constitute a public nuisance.
This, you'll recall, was continued from our meeting in June at the request of the council based on some deliberation after the property owner showed up. There has been some movement on it, but we would believe this is simply the declaration of intent. It is not declaring at this time. We believe there's considerable more work to do, and we would like to continue working with them. So at this point, we'd recommend that we continue it on the agenda and we bring it forward. But I believe the property owner is in the audience. I don't know if he'd like to speak or not.
Well, wait, let me ask the council member, do you have any questions of staff on this? If not, is there someone in the audience who'd like to speak on this?
the property owner's here.
Yes, come right ahead. Please step to the podium.
I believe was the last time to get rid of the trees that had deceased?
Sir, can you state your
Oh,
name?
I'm sorry.
Please, thank you. That way the
I'm
audience
sorry.
knows who you are.
I
Thank you.
have a wedding taking place, and it's just like chaos, so my mind is in there, too. I'm sorry. I'm Charles Spivens, owner of the resident at 10101 Center Drive in Villa Park, California. And at the last meeting, it was my understanding that the trees that had deceased were to be taken care of. And I had been working at it as much as I can. I did fall and fracture my right elbow, but I've been working at it. And then I believe they're gone. I don't know if anybody...
You know, we were there this morning, and I personally drove by. We believe, like I reported, that there is some work to do. We'd like to continue working with you.
Right.
But at this point, we recommend we just leave it on the agenda for hearing, and by next month,
okay.
if there's a complete resolution, the item, we'd recommend deletion. But at this point, we believe that we still need to have some work to do.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought I had met my obligation, but I guess I hadn't. So all the trees that are deceased are gone, I believe, unless you saw something else. And there's some trees in urns, but they're going to a wedding and to the cathedral. But they're growing. They're very beautiful. But that's all I have to say. If you
Is
have
it-
any questions, feel free to ask
Any
me.
questions
I
of
have
the
a
speaker?
question.
Yes.
Does he have a punch list that he's following, that we've given him with all the different items that we expect to be done?
We've talked to him, and like I said, there has been some movement, but we'd like to clarify, and I think there's some
Okay.
clarification of what needs to be done.
Okay.
He did make some efforts, so we'd like to give him some credit for taking some action.
Okay.
But I believe there's still things outstanding. So I think, short of getting into which trees should be moved and which not, which is pretty much what we have to do, we'll have our person go out and meet with you on site, and we'll walk
Okay.
through tree by tree and tag them, what needs to be done and what not, but we still believe there's some that needs
Oh,
to
okay.
be addressed.
It'd be kind of nice to have a punch list, written punch list, so everybody agrees to it and sign off on it type thing once it's done.
Okay, and I am currently landscaping the place too, so just to let you know. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Sam.
My pleasure, thank you.
Now, all right, Steve, are you suggesting we postpone this? Or
No,
go-
I'm suggesting that we
Oh,
go ahead
we
and
go ahead with
declare,
it. Okay.
that we express an intent. We
Okay.
postponed it last month, so at this point, all we would do is simply say the next hearing date, we'd make a decision.
Make a decision,
And then
okay.
at this point, instead of continuing it on,
Okay.
I'm optimistic that we can reach resolution, but I think we need to continue moving forward in the process.
Okay.
Because at some point, we need to make that final decision.
Okay, council members, is there any discussion regarding this item? If not, do I hear a motion on this matter?
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Then moved in second. Please record your vote.
Passes unanimously 5-0.
Our next hearing is consideration of resolution number 2017-3396, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Villa Park declaring conditions present at 10181 Center Drive, Villa Park constitute a public nuisance.
You'll recall that the intent on this one was declared. We've reached out several times since our last meeting and received no response from the property owner. At this point, there was some work done, if you're familiar on Center. All the weeds were cleared, but on Santiago, there are dead trees hanging over and whatnot. So we feel this could be dealt with very easily, but at the same time, we've received no communication, no response, and candidly, they're not even answering the door when our individual went there. So at this point, we don't have any reason to believe there would be a compliance, so we'd recommend moving forward. I'll leave it to the discretion of the council.
Council members, do you have any questions of staff? If not, is there anyone here to speak at this hearing? If so, step to the podium. If not, council members, any discussion regarding this item? If not, is there a motion on this matter?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved in second, so record your vote. Steve, would you read the results?
We have the motion passes on a 4-1 vote with Councilwoman Fasenelli dissenting.
Our next hearing is consideration of resolution 2017-3397, a resolution of the City Council, City of Villa Park declaring conditions present at 18341 Valley Drive, Villa Park, California, to constitute a public nuisance. Staff, please give the staff report.
Much like the item just before, number 3 before it, this was, the intent to declare was given in the June meeting. We have had this as an off-site owner. We've continued to have no resolution on the issue. It is not somebody that's communicated with us. So we, again, the conditions persist. No action's been taken. We would recommend moving forward on this as well.
Council members, you have any questions of staff?
I have a couple comments. This property, 18 months ago, 19 months ago, we declared it a public nuisance. We went in, we cleaned it up, incurred about $3,500 in charges, and it's after research realized that we never attached it to the property.
Correct.
So there was obviously some mistake or an omission from the city staff not to get the money back. So we're already out $3,500 that has not been attached. It's my understanding that at this point, we're not sure even if we do the work, if we can attach it, because I think it's an escrow, it's a short sale, am I correct?
It is an escrow, it's a short sale, but I think to preserve options, we would want to declare it and have the option of moving forward. Our intent would be to work with the escrow company to make sure that that's itemized in there. And so we'll be working with them as well. So we are cognizant of the repayment issue for the city. We certainly wouldn't want to do work and not have it reimbursed, but at the same time, it is a nuisance that's recurring.
Yeah, well, I've heard a few comments from the residents that quite frankly, it's not that big of a nuisance. I mean, it's weeds, I'll give you that. I mean, it doesn't look nice, and you happen to run into it when you're on there. I'm just concerned that we already did it once, and we didn't follow the protocol. Can we go back and file the original $3,500?
I'm discussing that with the county staff at this point, the assessor, and we'll be talking, we have an August deadline that we have to meet, August 10th, I believe. So we're working with them to see if that's an opportunity to move forward on that. So we're pulling together the paperwork at their request, and we're working with them to see what our options will be.
Because if it's, I mean, the bank's going to own it in the next 3 weeks, let the bank clean it up, quite frankly. Because right now, we don't know if we're going to get a $3,500 back that we originally did it. So that's my concern on that. We don't have many of these, so it was disturbing that it was never filed to begin with, because we went through a lot of trouble to do it. So it's just my concern. If someone's going to buy it, they're going to clean it up. It's a nice piece of property. I don't know if we're jumping.
Any guarantee the bank would?
They normally have in the past, and if not, you know, the new owner's going to, but I just don't want to spend another $4,000.
Yeah, I agree.
And now we're out $7,000.
Yes.
To Councilman Pitts' question, during the Great Recession, or whatever it was called, banks did often fail to clean up properties that were being foreclosed. So the legislature put a special code section, the number escapes me, but in essence, if a bank, savings and loan, or some similar entity owns a property and it falls into a nuisance condition, you can assess the property actually $1,000 a day to try and spur action. So there's a bit of a hammer there if the bank doesn't do anything.
But that's after declaration. Would
Yeah,
have
you
to be
still do the but
we would have to do a declaration to do that.
I believe
to
we
prompt
did that on
action.
one property on Lincoln, if I remember correctly.
A number of
We-
years
we
ago.
threatened, yeah, we.
A number of years ago, yeah.
I've got a couple statements about that. Correct me if I'm wrong, there was or is still a significant mosquito abatement issue.
Yes, there is.
And
They
there's
are
been, and it's
climbing
not
the
just
fence
weeds. Okay,
They're dealing with the, vector control is dealing with that, not the city.
But
okay,
that's not on here, am I right? Or am I missing it?
right, but.
That's in the backyard, so that's not part of the
That's not
nuisance.
that's not part of this,
Right,
part of this
but-
agenda.
The
So
I
nuisance
guess
is in the backyard, but it is an abatement issue that vector control is dealing with.
Right, I think that with respect to this property specifically, the gloves need to come off because it has been a repeated issue over and over and over. And having spoke directly with neighbors surrounding it, it is a huge issue for them. And I don't see any latitude regardless of whatever the conditions are, though I do appreciate the councilwoman's caution about expending city resources. If there's a property that deserves a hammer, it's this one.
Do we have any idea how much it would cost to clean up what we believe should be cleaned up?
It's probably going to be in a comparable range of what we spent last time. It's very similar types of issues, of vegetation and weeds and things
it's a
all
weed
over.
whacker. It's a $4,000 weed whack job, which is what we did last time.
It's a significant, it's an incline, property's got some real problems with the, you know, there's some broken pipes and there's cleanup.
But the city will then be out $8,000 with possibly a new owner coming in, so.
Unless you can leverage the bank to clean it up and pay for it.
Mayor?
Yeah.
City Manager, you did say that you would be using discretion in going forward if it appears that there's going to be,
We've contacted the real estate agent at this point, who's interested, we're working with the bank, we're talking to the escrow company, there's our hope that we can work, but the councilman's right, there's no guarantee there's a reimbursement, but it is something that we're conscious of, and our goal would not be to incur expenses to the city that would not be reimbursed. However, there is a risk, and undoubtedly, that risk at some point will have to be made. You know, so we'll move forward, not with deliberity, you know, moving forward, but we can't guarantee that we'll be reimbursed. I just can't promise that money.
I have driven by the property, and there are a lot of large weeds. Do you think that this would present a bit of a fire hazard with all the dry weeds?
I'd have to defer to the fire authority, but I mean, we believe it's a nuisance, and I think at that point, we're moving forward, and it's a violation of the city codes. So I think that alone is enough to move forward on it.
Okay.
So if we declare it a nuisance, when can the city file We've yet to even file for the original $3,500.
We have till August 10th is the date to file.
To
But
both?
we haven't done it yet, so it's been a couple of years. So between the last council meeting and now, we haven't done it because we don't know if we can. Is that right?
Yes,
Is that correct?
correct, because it's in arrears, so they're going back and seeing, they're asking for documentation, declaration of nuisance and things like that, so that's a different process. So that will be treated differently than this process.
So theoretically, we could file for this one before we could file for the last
Potential.
one.
No, actually, so under a code, a person, if you approve this, you declare it a nuisance, and under a code, under state law, they then have 30 days to fix it, right? If they don't fix it within that 30 days, we can use our own forces to do so. If we do so, then we are to itemize the costs, and then we come back to you for an approval of that cost.
Which
And
is what we
that's-
did the last time.
And that's when the assessment then gets put on.
Right.
So that's the process. So this one, it will be months before you could put these on the property tax bill.
But why can't we put the original one? We already declared that 35, we already worked on it. It came to council, we declared it, it got lost in the office. Why couldn't we at least file that tomorrow? Or
The statute of limitations or anything on it?
the
No,
original $3,500?
You know, I haven't been asked about that, so I don't know. I vaguely remember something a couple
Yeah,
years ago.
that's been done. That was approved and finished, so.
I think we're dealing with the county and the county's process and the staff, and that they're working with their attorneys to ensure that what we're doing is it's in arrears. They're checking, they want to check property, the title, they want to do a number of different items so that they're, assessing the right people. There haven't been something changed in property of value ownership in the last year. So they're doing some research on their side. They've asked us to pull together some documents on our side. And candidly, this issue started coming up just last month when we made the declaration. So over the last 30 days, we've been kind of working through it.
And just, the August 10th date, that's just so it can go on next year's property tax bill. That's just a printing date that the county has. That's why that date's.
My point is that I don't know if we should get into the habit of having these nuisances, cleaning them up, but we're not going after the money. I know the county's waiting for you, says, hey, give us some time to figure it out, but quite frankly, why? We spent the money. Put it on there, and if it doesn't belong to them, they'll call us up and say, hey, it's not my bill. They get notices, but we're already out $3,500, and it's
Mayor?
been a couple of years.
Yes.
It's my understanding that you are proceeding, work with the county to get the assessment in arrears.
Yes, we are discussing that, and again, they've wanted to talk to their attorneys, verify what and has to be done in what process. So we're working with them on that regard. So we are moving forward on that. Have we received reimbursement? Will we receive reimbursement? There's no guarantee. I don't have an affirmative response from the county at this point.
But as to the real property priorities, this type of assessment does have priority over mortgages, and it's like a tax assessment. So if you remember Real Estate 101, this gets paid first.
The first
before-
position.
Yeah, so, once it gets recorded.
Once it gets recorded.
Yeah,
But it's not recorded, that's the. What would stop you, Todd, from just going into court and filing it?
Because I sadly am not the county assessor, and I don't have the independent authority to do that, to have it be of the effect of a statutory assessment. There's a procedure you have to do for that.
All right,
If I try to do that, I'd probably get sued for putting a cloud on title, frankly.
okay.
Is anyone here to speak at the hearing from the audience? If so, please step forward to the podium. Seeing none, is there any further discussion with the council? If not, do I hear a motion on this matter?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second, record your vote. Steve, would you please read the results?
It passes with a 5-0 unanimous vote.
Okay. Now we get to the consent calendar. Now we will consider the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered routine and are usually enacted by one motion, approved the recommended action listed on the agenda. Any member of the city council, staff, or the public may request an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion or separate action. Council members, are there any items you'd like to remove from the consent calendar?
I'd like to remove 10 and 11.
I would offer, like to make, Mayor, number 12, I would personally like to amend the previous recommendation, and number 13 will delete. Subsequent to our filing this action, the committee, the Assembly Committee put this into a 2-year hold pattern. So number 13 is not applicable at this point, so we're going to recommend deleting number 13. And I would ask that we pull number 12 for a separate discussion.
Okay. Any other council members want to pull anything? Any other staff want to pull anything? Any public want to pull anything? Okay, so I have agenda items 10, 11, 12, and 13 pulled from the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the balance of items?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Been moved in second, so cast your vote. Thank you. Now we'll take up the other items that were pulled for this.
Mayor, that passes under 5-0 vote, just to record
Okay.
that for that.
I thought so.
Just to record.
Thank you. Now we'll take up the other items that are pulled for discussion. We'll start with Councilwoman Fasenelli, pull item number 10.
Item number 10, the minutes are not being written in the manner that they were for several years. I refer back to the minutes to be able to get some historical data. I don't refer back to the video unless I have to get actual confirmation. And when I read the minutes here, they're very, very brief. And most of our residents do read these minutes. I don't have names of speakers. I don't have significant detail about what some people have spoken about. I think that they need to be rewritten. I brought this issue up before. We did have some corrections on it, and I'd like to go back to how the council has always received the minutes. We go back to the minutes to look at our research, and then we can go back to the video. But based on the way these are written, I don't really know what happened, and I don't know the speakers. I'd like to hear what the crime statistics are going to be, people who do read the minutes. Got to put something brief in there. We certainly need to know who the speakers are. That's something that we've always had up there, so we know the residents and what they're talking about. So I would like to see these come back to us next month, please.
I would agree with the councilwoman on that. There are a few items that kind of made me scratch my head, and I thank you for bringing that up.
So item number 10, is that what?
That's it. I want the minutes to come back next month with
You
more
want to come
detail.
back next month?
With more
Those,
detail.
those minutes?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm not going back to anything, just these right here.
okay.
Yeah.
And I will be happy to share my comments offline.
And I would share that this is our first month we transitioned to a new minutes process. So under contract, we have a clerk. And my direction to her was I want what's minimally required by law. So that was my instruction to her. I will make sure that she accommodates that direction. But I said, do what California law requires, and that's what she did. So that's specifically what the direction, but I take responsibility because I said, you know, I don't need anything more because I don't want to pay for anything more than absolutely necessary, but I understand the council will adjust accordingly.
Mayor, you have the floor.
Yes.
We do record the, have a audio recording of the
It is
council
running
meetings.
right now, correct?
And we also have a video recording of our council meetings, correct?
Yes, sir.
So detail is available for those who are truly interested in the detail of the council meetings.
If somebody wants to view it in either that manner or listen to it, they have that ability, yes.
Okay. How, can you come back to us with an estimate of how much would cost what the difference in cost would be to provide a transcript as well as the video and audio recording?
Well, I'm not, do you want a transcript or do you want the
No.
minutes as they were done in the
No,
past?
over the last
I guess that's
15 years, we've had the same minutes. Even since you came, we had another woman who was doing it, if I remember, she had her agency, and they were perfectly fine. But we're missing very basic information, who the speakers are, who's coming up, what the sheriff and what people are reporting on. I mean, why go to the trouble to report on everything if it's not going to be written down? It doesn't need to be verbatim, but we do need to have some sort of detail because 99% of the people are going to click on the minutes and they're going to read it.
Okay.
And then they're going to go back for verification, and that's what I do too.
Okay, again, what I would clarify, what she's provided here is action minutes as required by California
That's
state law.
correct. And
She
we've
did
always
not
provided
provide
more.
minutes that were currently, the city is operating at a higher level of providing minutes. So I will get back to her, say we want to go back to the older level and not the summary action minutes that she currently did. So that's the difference.
I
So
understand. No, I
that's-
understand these are legally, this is what's legally required. I think we've gone over and
Right.
above for our residents, so they have an idea what's going
that-
on.
That's
all.
fair enough, and we'll take action.
Sorry, Steve, we're spoiled.
Oh,
Makes
yeah,
it,
yeah.
makes it a little easier.
I think you did a
too.
good job
Oh,
nonetheless.
we have a member of the public that would like to speak. You want to speak? Come on up.
This is Charles, thank you. She's my helper. Charles Bivens. I have a question. How does one access the videos and whatnot like that for like the exact precise discussions that happen at prior council meetings?
They're on our website. You can access them. They're by date, and you can watch the meeting verbatim as you're watching it on TV now.
Can it be like segmented for like approximate minute, like if, like say, 7 to 7:25?
It's basically a YouTube recording of it, so it's not, we will be moving to that, in that direction with the new website, but we are not there right now.
So just go to the Villa Park website and
Yes,
then
and you'll be able to
it'll
pull
say
it up
click.
with the date of the meeting, and you'll be able to
Okay.
pull it up, and you'll be able to watch it.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Now, back to council. Councilwoman Fasenelli, do you want to approve these as they are, or do you want to put off approving these to the next meeting?
I want them to come back for approval at the next meeting.
Okay, all right. So with that, we will move on to, you pulled item number 11.
I did. I put item number 11 just to make reference here at the last, or I don't know if it was the last meeting or the meeting prior to, you did make a comment that if any of the council members went to the conference in Monterey, that you would consider them being a delegate for the League of California Cities. So it appears that Councilman Pitts, I guess, complied with that order. So it's nice that you kept your word and you considered him to be a delegate. So I just wanted to bring that up, since
Okay.
Councilman Rossini and
I
I didn't go to Monterey.
I always keep my word.
Kept your word.
I
so-
had to go to
Actually,
the
I think
Community
he-
Services
I think
Foundation
he twisted his
meeting.
arm. I didn't particularly care for that. I don't care for people saying, if you do this, I'll give you this. It's not the type of reward that I believe that people at this level should have, but I do like the fact that you made him a delegate. Thank you. And I will move that item.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second, record your vote. Steve, read the results.
That passes unanimous 5-0 vote.
Okay, now, Steve, you pulled item number 12.
Item number 12 is, we had, at the recommendation of the League of California Cities, opposition to SB 649. I don't want to pronounce it because I'll mispronounce the name of the member. But I do want to indicate what it is. Basically, it is legislation that prohibits discretionary review of small cell wireless antennas. So in reality, what it would do is remove the ability for local entities to establish guidelines and whatnot for design review or anything for the cells that are placed. They could be placed on public right-of-ways or private residential. And I have had discussions with some of the council members and et cetera. One of the the fundamental issue is the loss of local control for design. And sort of if something is not in tune with the community's design desires, they could be putting it up, they'd be entitled to put this up. All they would need is an encroachment permit, and they'd be ministerially be given it and put it up. So we don't have opposition. We really support the development of wireless. We have issues in the cities with wireless that are not adequately covered. So we would like to endorse that. So after thinking about this and sort of talking it through, I think the issue that we're objecting to is the loss of local control, not the absence of development. So I think what we really want to do is I would like to amend, I would still like to send a letter, but oppose unless amended. In other words, reinsert a local design review process into this, and we're fine with it. So that we're not putting something in somebody's yard that they don't, that's so ugly and et cetera, ruins the whole point. People don't like, telephone poles in this community, let alone having certain hanging from it otherwise. So we would like to be able to have that ability to talk it through, but at the same time, we don't want to impede the ability to advance in technology in the community. So I think the point being is, I think what I'd like to do is change the recommendation here in the letter, the language of the letter, have authority from you to oppose unless amended, because I do not support that the legislature taking away local control. The fundamental rights and responsibilities of this council is property and control of property within the jurisdiction. So to abdicate that responsibility for this would be inappropriate. However, I don't want to send the wrong message. So we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So that's my recommendation, that you allow me to send, or direct me to send a letter, but oppose unless amended, and I will forward a copy to the council as well. That would be my recommendation.
Any questions from the council? If not, anyone from the public would like to speak on this? If not, do I hear a motion to,
So moved.
for Steve's recommendation?
I'll second.
Moved in second, so cast your vote.
That passes unanimous 5-0 vote.
Now, you pull number 13. You say you want to delete 13 because?
13 would be deleted. It died in committee, basically. They did what they didn't kill the vote. They just basically put it in a holding pattern, a suspense file for 2 years, which means that some action has to be taken in 2 years, or it dies in 2 years automatically. So nobody had to sort of put the knife in it. It was done on its own, just simply held in sort of the suspense file. So at this point, it's futile to send the letter up there. There's no action going to be taken. It's not going to be scheduled for any assembly hearing or any meetings. So at this point, sending a letter of opposition is just nothing more than probably us sending a piece of paper that doesn't go anywhere. So I'd recommend that we not waste our time and save our effort on this one, and we delete this item from the agenda.
They actually ignored us, is what they did. To put it in street words, they gave us the finger. They looked at Orange County and said, you have 1,200, sober treatment centers, and we've only received 80 complaints. It's working, so we don't need to give you an inspector. That was their exact words. And they said, we're just going to put it under there. They didn't care. And I look forward to Quicksilver going and writing another one, and it'll come back with something else, because she cannot give up. As a representative, we can't give up on that either, because we've lost local control. So I look forward to something coming back here, because they just ignored us.
Okay, so with council consensus, we will just eliminate that one.
There'll be no action required.
No action required. We'll move on to old business, and our first item, old business, approval of the annual statement of investment policy. Staff report.
As you recall, this was on our June agenda. There were some recommendations that were, I think it was May agenda, I apologize, the May agenda.
Correct.
To the May agenda, it was brought forward, and Councilwoman Fasenelli had some concerns and questions and sent it back. So the council unanimously sent it back to the Investment Advisory Committee with her changes to consider, and any other changes that they might be relevant. So I'll let Michelle, our finance director, detail any and answer any questions.
Right, so the items that were brought up were unanimously approved by the IAC. The one thing that they did change, and I believe Mayor Nelson brought up, was that making the investment policy, because we're not making any major changes every year, but we're doing more fixes, and that if we change it to a triennial basis of review, then it will be a substantial revision based on the status of where we're at as a city. So that's the major change, but everything else that was, the glossary was put back in, the wording was clarified in some areas. So that's the major changes. If you have any questions, we can go through a detail.
Council members, you have any questions?
My concern with the triennial review is that we have an election every 2 years, and you do run you do get a new council every 2 years, and what would happen is you may miss that. 3 years, so it makes sense. Even if there isn't any change, it's nice for it to come to council, so that new council who does come in 2 years sees it. Otherwise, they're not going to see it. I think that 2 years is prudent, so that everybody gets a look at it. You don't have to change it, because there's not really much change that goes on. This was a cleanup effort. Right. So everything that I suggested was just it needed to be cleaned up because we hadn't read it in detail. So my suggestion is to change it to 2 years, only because there's an election every 2 years.
Anyone from the public would like to speak on this issue? Not, I'll bring back to the council any further discussion. You can always make a motion to change it.
I know.
Okay.
I was discussing it. We weren't in motion. We weren't there. But I'll be happy to make a motion for the annual statement of investment policy to be reviewed every 2 years by the council.
And just for clarification, that would include approval of the draft otherwise, all the other changes that were incorporated.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right, okay, thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Then moved in second, so record your vote.
Okay, that approved, that gets passed on a 4-to-1 vote with Councilman Rossini voting no.
New business. Our first item of new business is a TAF rehabilitation project. Staff, please give the staff report.
As you're aware, this is the major project going on between Santiago and Lemon. Basically, in pulling up the medians, one of the curbing, one of the issues that came up was the roots have been so, they infested, if you will, or engaged the curbing much more than we had anticipated. So in discussing this with Ben's Asphalt, the contractor and the project manager, we consulted 2 different arborists, and one of the recommendations was not to cut the roots any further because they're damaged. The trees are not in a pristine position, in a condition, but they are surviving and they're in good condition, fair to good. The issue would be how do we move forward? So there are a number of options. I think we outlined those. There were 3 options that were outlined. That was to basically prune the roots and just go down. And one of the issues Ben's Asphalt had indicated was that they wanted to use an automated curb machine, or a machine that basically requires 3 feet and it forms the curb. Now, I'm not being an expert, so I'm going to give you a real layman's explanation. I've learned more very quickly. But basically, it would cut down, and we'd have to go straight down the roots, and we would lose the biggest concern for me is it would cost us $52,000. It would be, the other issue, it would be a risk to preserving the trees. And the third issue would be we would lose 36 inches on that roadway. On the south side, I'm not as worried about it, but we would have had to cut into the bike lane. So I'm very concerned around the school that we would have had to do that. The second option was to do some slot work and kind of work our way through the process. That wasn't going to be any quicker in the process, but it would basically, again, require us to lose some of the bike lanes. So it would narrow it down much further. The third option, which is invariably never how it works, is the cheapest is probably the best, because it actually, by the arborist, would have the best risk of saving the trees. And that is to do it the old-fashioned way, is use stakes, bricks, and wood to form the curbs. And you'll see them out there actually doing that. One of the concerns that we had there is that the time frame, it's a manual labor. So if you're using manual, the whole point of developing the automated machinery was it's much quicker. The time frame initially received, it would be an additional potentially 16 days to use the manual labor, et cetera, because it wasn't planned into the original program. So it would involve Ben's having to go out, hire the labor, get them on board, et cetera. So I, using the discretion, talking with counsel, or the attorney, and also the field manager said this is the best way to go. The arborist confirmed it. I went ahead and authorized that. We have not negotiated the dollar amount because that's part of him securing the labor, and part of that's scheduling. Now, the contract manager, or construction manager, is also working with them because there's ways we can reschedule it that wouldn't affect labor as much. It would still affect it. So it's a negotiable item. So what I wanted to do, that in totality, that would be at about $26,000. So based on the ability to move forward and complete the project prior to the start of school, and to save the trees in the best manner possible, and to save the money, it seemed to be sort of the compelling, like I said, the cheapest was the best for, you know, the stars were in alignment here. So I went ahead and did that. However, I wanted the council to be aware, and I wanted to basically have you ratify my ability to go forward and negotiate with the contractor, and come back with a change order sometime. But I didn't want to just show up with a change order on your agenda sometime and say, oh, here it is. So I'll explain that. So that's what we're doing here, is just asking for you to ratify my authorization already negotiated, but I wanted to incorporate it sort of my way of bringing you up to where we are. And the other issue, oh yes, I'm sorry, the $26,000, we have a $79,000 contingency, so it is well within our contingency to deal with this. So again, the stars are lining up right, and hopefully we don't have a lot different going on, but that's where we are. The other issue I just wanted to, and Akram, and wanted to talk to you about, there is an issue, ADA requirements. We're working with the school district on the driveways, the approaches, the amount would have to go. Akram can deal with it, but we are working with the school district And there may be some discussions with that. We've sort of said we can deal with those now as part of this project, or you can deal with it all later. So we're having that discussion, and I will be bringing something forward to you later at that point. We're not prepared to, because we're still discussing that with the school district, and they have other big construction projects on mind. But I did also wanted to mention what we're doing with them. So at this point, all we're asking you to do is ratify my ability to go negotiate with Ben's Asphalt for the total amount to bring back to you, or a change order.
Any questions of staff?
Yes. So the work that's been done so far around the trees, the arborists believe that we did not harm the trees?
There's always the risk. I mean, we're not going to know until the first wind. You know, that could happen anytime anyway. Like I say, the trees are either in they're in fair to good condition, their age or whatever. Because they're entwined, their roots are entwined with curbing anyway, there's potential that could have happened that, you know, but it's minimized. If you go down there, and I've been down there probably a bunch of times at this point, they didn't go that deep, so it's a surface rooting. If you're familiar with these trees, they're very deep rooted. So we're hoping that, you know, with extra irrigation, the arborist has recommended extra mulching, extra irrigation, and a different, you know, the supply lines for the water be done right. So we have some issues to deal with, but that's all part of the contract, and that shouldn't be an issue. But we don't believe there's significant damage to the trees, and we're hopeful that's going to hold true. But again, we'll know with time. It could be, according to the arborist, it could be 5 to 10 years before damage even surfaces. We realize the damage has been done.
So they included in their proposal was the use of the machine to put down the curb. So there was a cost associated with that.
The contract was non-specific on how to deal with the curbs. We just know that that's how, in the project manager deliberated and kind of figured out that the ability for him to build the curb and to have that cost was that he used an automated machine. Mm-hmm. He couldn't possibly have done the labor. So in other words, in doing the calculations and doing it, so that's how it was done. The RFP was non-specific on how you do that. Right. We just said we wanted a curb this high.
I'm assuming you leave it up to each contractor
That's what it was
to do what they see fit.
Right.
My point is, there's cost in there already for the machine.
Yes.
Is this the delta?
This is the delta.
Seems
this will be the
awful high,
delta.
$46,000 delta.
No, it'll be 26,000.
26, okay.
26,000.
That still seems high.
Yeah, 26,000, and that's based on a square footage, which it's not actual. It's just an application of a number that's a business standard. What we actually deal with will be what we negotiate and what he actually incurs as a labor cost. So it'll be the delta, what he already has built into the contract versus what he had to do by doing it manually. So there's some number here, okay. And I'll come down to that number. And if he were to do it, it's probably 26,000 on its own. But now we got the delta to deal with, so we'll work from there.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions? Does anyone from the public wish to comment on this item? If not, is there any further discussion from the council?
I'd just like to forward the many comments that I've received from residents that they love what we're doing down Taft, and we're so excited that we were actually doing a beautification process, and when they realized that we didn't have any money in the budget to do any of the landscaping, it turned to anger because of the dollar amount. I made it very clear, have pointed to the council meeting and to the direct quotes from the majority of the council here that beautification is not something that is a priority to the majority of this council, and it is not sitting well with our residents. So to spend that kind of money, and we have a change order here, and that's great, we're going to save the trees, but that's all there's going to be down there. So we've got a major thoroughway that's going to have trees and gutters, but no money whatsoever to put into any landscaping. So we have a change order here, and that's great. I would like to see possibly in the future putting a change order in to put some landscaping in on Taft, because it is our city. And we have a lot of homes for sale, and people are driving through looking for a great place to come live, and they would like to see some, some greenery. So those are my comments on the Taft project.
Any further discussion? If not, do I hear a motion on the item?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Moved in second, so cast your vote.
That passes with a 5-0 vote.
Thank you. Our next item of new business is the trash amendment evaluation. Staff, please give the staff report.
Okay, number 16, we're going to go from trees to trash. The State Water Resources Board, State Water Resources Control Board, I don't want to do any disservices. Basically, and the regional water quality control boards, they control the discharge of trash into the waters throughout the state. Their concern has been expressed concern we're creating a need for consistency regarding trash control. So the trash amendments that they're doing, and I'm going to have to kind of give you the layman's, we've got our consultant in the audience here that can speak. But basically, they've set up and told there's 2 tracks that we can move down under further regulation. The first track is a stormwater discharge is to put permitted stormwater dischargers to control discharge at each of our catches. The track 1 requires trash capture to be achieved through full capture systems at every catch basin, which we've done most of, so we are mostly in compliance in Villa Park. The second track requires the development and implementation of a plan and combination of full capture systems, multi-benefit projects, institutional controls, and other treatment controls to achieve full capture systems. So as much as I love plans, and I would love to have staff do some extra work on this one, this would be a very costly an effort for us. So much like every other city in Orange County, I believe most cities in Orange County have chosen track 1. This is our consultant. I'm sorry, Cameron. Why don't you introduce yourself?
You probably won't see the official.
What's your name?
Good evening.
Yes.
Cameron McCullough, a consultant with John O'Hunter and Associates. We assist the city with NPDES regulations, of which this includes. The official decision's due August 31st.
August 31st.
My guess is that most of the cities will be submitting at that point. But I do talk with the other cities, and it seems many will go with the track 1 approach because of its simplicity. I'm sure will be a few that do track 2, but they tend to be the larger cities. That's where the advantage of doing a monitoring program versus full capture systems comes to an advantage. The smaller you are, the more track 1 makes sense.
And we are mostly in compliance at this point in our process. So we need to make a decision, and we've had some significant consultations. I have talked to my counterparts in other cities, and again, it's the big cities that can afford to do something different are moving in that direction.
I agree.
Okay, any questions from the council? We do have one public speaker here. Darrell Ferguson wants to speak on this item.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff. I've actually got a letter here from a coalition for each of you, and my card. I'm a Surfrider Foundation Newport Beach chapter, so I'm the guy that's down at the beach once a month with 100 or so volunteers cleaning up the beach. So a lot of that stuff comes down from the Santa Ana River Flood Control Channel at Newport Beach. It's, that flood control channel is right in between Newport and Huntington. So we see a lot of this trash and plant debris conveyed during a storm. So what we do is we educate the public as much as we can about the need to not litter, the need to take care of your trash as much as possible. But of course, they're not the only ones that are in control of trash. A lot of the waste management, facilities have issues and concerns also. And there's a lot of different moving parts when it comes to stopping trash completely. And that's what these trash amendments are wanting you to do by 2027, is stop all trash from getting into water bodies, which is it's a big task, and we're glad to see it. And we're glad to see that the city's going with track 1. That's awesome that you can do that because you are a smaller city and you've already been proactive in doing that. So that is great. So basically what I'm here tonight is just to introduce myself. We are a resource. We do go to the schools. We do talk to the kids. And we invite everybody who wants to come down and do beach cleanups. And we're open to doing that in different spots. So on Coastal Cleanup Day, we do have a site in the Santa Ana River Flood Control Channel. And there's multiple sites throughout the county, and those will be easy to find on the California Coastal Commission site. So yeah, if there's any dialogue that you need to have with me, like I say, I left your letter, and I appreciate being able to talk tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions
All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ferguson. Next, back to the council. Any further discussion on this item? If not, do we have a motion on this item?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Please cast your vote.
That passes unanimously 5-0.
Okay, next we have the city manager report.
As I've done in the past, I provided a matrix of the current projects and past projects. I don't remove them. The only one I would, and I'm available, staff available to answer questions. The only one I would like to bring up is item number 48. If you're familiar with that, that's simply the communications with the council. That was online public council interaction. We had this discussion. I have talked to the technologies there's some other issues with it, but I did want to indicate there is a change on the agenda. The agenda itself, our current agenda, now has, we created an a separate email account. If someone wants to provide input on any item prior to the agenda, it's now published. They can put it at vpccinput@villapark.org. So if somebody would like to provide any input to us in advance, that's one sort of automated thing that we've moved to. The other issues with respect to some of the more aggressive social media issues have some other complications with them. And I'm actually going to be spending some time talking to our city attorney about that before I make any recommendation. But I did want to point that out for the public, that anyone might be listening. It's vpccinput@villapark.org. And it's printed on our front of our agendas on any item they get. It's specifically, and it will be shared with you, the council, before any council meeting. So that's all I have. We're prepared to answer any questions.
Any questions, city manager?
Steve, a couple things. Sure. The Villa Park Elementary School bell, is there any, when we first started talking about this, there was an opportunity maybe to do some sharing with the school district with regards to that bell and where it resided and so forth and so on. Has been any further discussions with them about that?
I'm going to actually defer to Councilwoman Fasenelli because she's had more conversations. I don't have a counterpart over there at the school district at this point. I think, well, I do, but they're in transition. So there haven't been any staff discussions at this point. You've met the new facilities director, and we've got some other discussions going on with him, so we haven't talked about the bell, quite candidly, but I know the councilwoman.
The bell is safe at the school, being polished in some corner, and it will be in the middle of the quad of the Villa Park Elementary when they get the quad all finished.
Cool.
So it will be at the school site.
Coming home.
Is where it's going to be.
Okay.
Any additional questions, Steve?
A couple more.
Brief summary, how.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'll come back.
Just concerned, how's Henderson going? Storm drain.
It is going. We have had a second or third or fourth or fifth or 10th FEMA visit just this week. And we're dealing with our third inspector at this point, who's now taking pictures, and they're taking pictures to see who's a better cameraman at this point because we've had so many. But we have gone through there. We are moving forward. The design is out right now for bid, the RFP. FEMA requires us to do every single element by RFP process. So the design element is out. There is a temporary fence up there to control any access. The property owner is dealing specifically with me, and that's it. And we've sort of come to agreements on that. But my concern obviously is that we not keep trouncing in, but we've had engineers go through there, and with all due respect to Akram and people, the FEMA people come through there, and she's sort of said, how many more? So I think we're trying to be considerate of her time, so I contact her 24 hours in advance. But we're moving forward, the design, and I want to say the design RFP is due the 31st of this month, and we've had a number of significant firms and the county express interest in possibly coming forward on that. So we'll be able to report that to the council very quickly. Next meeting, I would hope.
I just want to thank you and the entire staff for all the work that you put in on this near disaster, or in certainly one homeowner's eyes, a potential disaster or disaster. And I'm thankful that our federal and state partners have stepped up. And every time there's a little bit of rainfall, the hair on the back of my head kind of stands up, because having spent so much time there and worrying whether or not we were going to have a house wash away or two houses wash away or a street wash away. Until that is done, I don't think many of us will sleep well anytime there's a little drizzle on the roadway,
And
as it was this week.
continued to process FEMA. I have the same concerns about rainfall, but probably because we're re-roofing. But anyway.
That'll do it.
The issue of that property is of utmost concern. We're trying to move forward, but in a deliberate way that allows us to get FEMA reimbursement. This is a significant project, and it would be very costly for the city to have to undertake. So we want to make sure all of our I's are dotted and T's crossed. So we're doing that, and again, we're on our third inspector. I guess that's what they call them, inspectors. But they're project manager. It's a challenge because we re-educate them each time through.
You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Councilman Pitts.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had a couple more. Item number 29, the pavement crack sealing.
Yes.
I apologize for not talking to you about this before, but I just noticed it in my review prior to the council meeting. You say negotiating shared service agreements with surrounding cities. Can you tell me what that means?
What I'm doing basically is, the Mayor Pro Tem suggested that we tack on to some of the contracts that other cities might be using to do some crack sealing. In other words, instead of us going out, we do crack sealing, but having to do it on our own. We're small and we pay a premium, obviously, for people to come out and do it. Other contracts, we would just be an addendum to some of these other contracts. I will say that several of the local cities have expressed no interest in contracting with us.
Isn't that funny?
But several have expressed. So when I say negotiating, I've got two different cities. I'm asking what would be the cost and conditions? Would there be a minimum requirement from us to do and those things? So any agreement would obviously come back to the council, but negotiating is simply what are they interested in letting us participate, and do they expect a minimum, we have to give them $10,000 for this every year, or we have to guarantee them X amount of time, or we give them, we have to give them 30 days notice, or what are the types of conditions that I can, and are they acceptable? So I've got at least two cities that are willing to at least talk about that, and talking to their public works directors. But again, I'm trying to leverage to see where I can get with the two and come back to the council.
I mean, the more you see, you might impact discounts and cheaper pricing for us. You never know.
Right.
As opposed to doing it on our own.
Absolutely.
Item number 35, the land annexation. Where do we stand with that? It says research regarding property and annexation still in process.
I'm going to defer, but there was the Mayor Pro Tem asked us up for questions. So I've asked the question just of LAFCO of the processing timeframes, and they're mapping out something for me. But there were some questions, and I know that when I say research, the CDC asked that it be re-agendized or continued on the next agenda. And maybe I will defer to the Mayor Pro Tem if he has anything additional to add.
Nothing more to add.
When is that meeting?
That's August 7th.
Okay.
So it's on the agenda to talk, the annexation is on the CDC?
Yeah, August 7th. It will be on there as an agenda item.
Okay.
It is Monday. 2 weeks, or 2 weeks from yesterday.
Was it on the agenda last month? I don't believe it was on the agenda last month, so this is a new item again.
No, it wasn't.
It was not on it last month.
No, we did not meet in July.
We didn't. It was on in the June calendar. It was on June, so they didn't meet in July because of the July 4th holiday, so they canceled that meeting. But the CDC asked.
So it's on the agenda, but Councilman Colacott, you don't have anything to say about it? Here at a public meeting where we're
Well, we've asked staff to gather information for us, and we're waiting to hear back what he
What
finds.
information? The council's asking.
What is the process? What
We went through
what it
that.
all?
It was a 2.5-hour CDC meeting. So what
Mr.
new
Mayor, point of
things
order.
are you asking staff to come back to? I mean, the councilman asked you a question, and we've got the public here. Tell us what you're asking.
I believe I answered the question. We're asking for information about the process and what the process of annexation, costs of annexation, whether how much property, whether parcels can be split up so that only a small amount of land might be annexed, just to identify what are the alternatives, and what options might be available to the city should the city decide that they want to make that available.
I believe you were told no, though, from Dennis Bilodeau, that they were not interested. So why are we pursuing this? And you told the public that. So I'm not quite sure why we're pursuing something that it was evident that they didn't want us to do that. And the public wasn't doing it either. And why is it going to CDC? This is a huge issue. I don't know why it's going to see. It should come.
This is an information gathering, as was expressed at the June CDC meeting. We're gathering information so that we can make a recommendation. It's
So the-
That's our responsibility, is to gather information so that we can make recommendations.
Sound like double
So,
talk to me.
so.
Not at all.
so-
You haven't answered a question.
I have exactly answered the
You're
question.
gathering information. I'm asking for specifics.
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
Yes.
I'm asking a question. and I'd
Can we
like
move
the
on?
ma- I would, no,
This
we're
this
not-
dialogue is becoming
Excuse me, Mr. Rossini.
undecorous. This
like
is
to
turning
know what-
into
Hold on.
interruption
I
after
was
interruption.
I was speaking.
Hold
I would like
on.
to know what
No,
the staff is working on.
Everyone's out of order. Just stop.
I'm not.
Well, except for Mr. Pitts.
You said everyone. It's clarifying. I asked the original question.
Exactly.
I told you the rules. You don't interrupt anybody. You be recognized by the chair.
Well, the rules can get broken when a councilman doesn't answer a direct question.
Well, that's your issue. He says he's answered the question. So
Research.
I'd like to just move on.
Because you don't want the question answered.
No,
So
he
make-
said he
please
says
make the
he says
minutes note
he
that
has
he's-
answered the question.
I'd like to know what the staff's
Mr. City
working
Attorney.
on. I think that maybe, what are we working on? Steve, what is the staff working on this issue?
I have not provided a formal report to the CDC. I'm assuming that's what he's expecting of me to put forward all that information to a final report.
Yes.
That's all. I'm not researching any additional beyond the questions I asked about the process for LAFCO.
Okay, so nothing's changed since June.
That apparently is what's happening. Nothing's changed.
That's apparently what,
Right.
that's all, that was a great answer. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Can we move on now? The mayor and council members matters. Next, we will discuss the council member request items. Colacott.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure I answered my question. I understand that we were moving forward to approve the plans that we currently had in place. Are there any additional thoughts and concerns or whatever about going after other parcels of land outside of what we've already submitted that were discussed in the CDC meeting? That's my question.
Are you talking with respect to the housing element?
Yes.
or- No, on the housing element, the draft plan has been submitted to HCD. So that draft plan did not incorporate any changes from what we previously discussed in the CDC. That will be coming, the housing element will be coming forward in September to this full council. And it basically is very similar to what was approved last November, I want to say.
Okay.
With no new pieces of land identified.
But the land annexation piece was a part of that, was it not? If my memory serves me correctly, because we were looking at other alternatives to what we're getting approved today, correct?
Well, the housing element was never combined with that. That was just a logic for, and I don't want to speak for the
Right.
Mayor Pro Tem, but the housing element and instructions I received were to move forward with the housing element with the update to incorporate nothing new or no changes except legally required changes and updates and any sort of date changes or nomenclature changes or things that might, but there was to be no substitution of any properties or anything. The annexation issue was a separate issue raised by the Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
With that in mind, that
For
that could
future
be.
time.
For future time, that could be constituted into the housing element. But there is nothing that is programmed into the housing element draft at this time.
So we're still considering annexation of something, may not be the pit area, but we're still considering that?
Well,
That's my question.
I'm not considering it. It's on the agenda of the CDC. So I want to make it clarified. The
Maybe I need
CDC
to
will have
defer to
that
Bob then.
item on their agenda.
I think Councilman Pitts, we answered a question when said nothing's happened on that since the most recent.
Okay.
Nothing's happened.
Okay,
That's where we are. Nothing's happened.
okay.
So any additional questions?
No, I'll attend the CDC meeting, getting information for myself.
Oh, okay, great.
About that.
Good. Mayor and council member matters. Next, we'll discuss the council member requested items. Colacott and Nelson, establishment of an infrastructure management advisory committee. I'm going to ask Mayor Pro Tem Colacott to give the staff report on this one.
Is this
Okay.
a staff report, or is this a report from Colacott? Because this does not say it's a staff report.
Well, I'm going to have him to give the report.
Okay,
because,
it's not from staff.
Not from
It's not
staff.
from staff.
Okay. What we're proposing on this agenda item is establishment of a Citizens Advisory Committee to assist the city in professionally and cost-effectively managing the maintenance of our streets, storm drains, and sanitary sewers. That kind of stuff is referred to as infrastructure. and it's the basic underpinnings of our civilization. You know, without streets, storm drains, sanitary sewers, we're kind of back in the dark ages. So it's fundamentally important to the operation of the city to effectively manage our streets, storm drains, and sanitary sewers. The objective is to improve the condition of our streets, reduce flooding hazards, and reduce sewer failures and backups into our residences. The idea is that we would be asking for residents that are professional engineers, such as Dr. Tate, to participate in a citizens advisory committee to help us to develop plans for maintenance of these facilities and try to maintain them in a more cost-effective manner so that it improves both the condition of these facilities as well as reduces the cost of hopefully reduces the cost of maintenance of these facilities. Although there are no specific projects that are identified in this proposal, this would be for this committee to look at just developing general maintenance plans for all of our streets, storm drains, and sewers, and also to assist the city staff in addressing other engineering issues that may arise. Let's see. Is it anticipated that or it's intended that the committee would develop recommendations to the city council on how we can more effectively manage these items of infrastructure. No recommendations or no discussion or anticipated reliance on this committee to identify funding mechanisms is proposed in the staff in the report or the agenda item report. However, in her Facebook posting yesterday, Councilwoman Fasenelli proposed issuance of municipal bonds by the city to finance infrastructure improvements. Proposing of such financing is clearly premature and potentially irresponsible. And frankly, I'm shocked that you would recommend that we propose municipal bond funding when we're just talking here about establishing a citizens advisory committee. A secondary benefit of establishing a citizens advisory... Can you repeat that? Excuse me?
I couldn't hear you. I'm asking you, I couldn't hear, I'm sorry.
Okay.
What did you say?
I would, anyway, this is, I would oppose issuance of such municipal bonds, but, you know, issuance of municipal bonds at any time is the purview of the city council, not of a citizens advisory committee. Anyway, the goal of the infrastructure advisory committee would be to more professionally manage our infrastructure to avoid the need for such dramatic measures as bond funding or other extreme financing mechanisms. The idea here is to, within the existing resources of the city, how can we more effectively and professionally manage our streets, storm drains, and sewers to the benefit of our community, and to involve our talented and skilled and knowledgeable professional engineers in our community to help us to better manage these facilities. So that's what's proposed, and that's...
Council members, do you have any questions of Mayor Pro Tem Colacott?
Well, once again, I asked you to repeat something, and because I couldn't hear you, but I think I heard you say that I proposed municipal bonds. So
I saw the same thing on the Facebook post.
Let me. I think, gosh. All right. So let me go first and foremost. Did any city staff write this document?
No, it was drafted by the Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. So the Mayor Pro Tem drafted this entire document. Did anyone else help you with this? I know that Mayor Nelson also assisted with this.
I did provide grammatical input and format changes, and I did provide a chart that was inserted in there at the request, but I believe that was...
Okay. So this document's been produced by Mayor Nelson as well as Mayor Pro Tem Colacott, and there were several revisions of this document that was proposed back and forth, and the mayor put in significant revisions. In addition, what we have here is we do have an email from the councilman that says, I believe the committee will find significant deficiencies and needs for funding that will need to be addressed by the Budget and Finance Committee, perhaps assisted by the Investment Advisory Committee. We may need bond financing. That went to the mayor, and that came from you.
And
I
that's,
did not, in any shape or form. So, first, you brought up bond financing. Second, you said at the beginning of this that this committee will have no responsibility for budgetary concerns. If you continue further into your emails, it shows that this is going to be structured with the Budget and Finance Committee and the Investment Advisory Committee, which this Investment Advisory Committee is so conservative, and we have been so conservative over the last 50-some years, and the word bond financing has never left their lips. So that's why I asked whether or not it had been discussed at the last Investment Advisory Committee, because I think that if you brought this up to them, they would just laugh.
well, as
But
a matter of...
excuse me.
Okay.
I'm here. So I'm going to read this document, and I read it in detail. And what we have here is we can have another committee. I'm perfectly fine with this. I think this is great. What we have to look at is why are we having the committee? Because we're going to have to interview these people. You put a really big list here that their resume is going to have to be very, very long. They're going to have to go through a background check. They're going to have to go through financial disclosures. Because what you're creating here is a department where they cannot have an aunt, an uncle, a son, or anybody come and bid on anything. And we're a small city. We don't really have a whole lot of options. There's a lot of companies out there that won't bid on us. That's why we have a hard time when we go out to RFPs. So before we start to think about this committee, we better tell the citizens that you're going to have disclosures, background checks, you're going to have to submit your resume, you're going to have experience in design, repair, maintenance of pavement, storm drains, sanitary sewers, hydrology, structural engineering, GIS, and surveying. This council is going to have to interview them. And then after we get done with that, you're going to have them interview and speak with the city staff. Because in this document, you say they don't know our city, so the city staff is now going to have to educate them on the city. Well, we hire a firm. We already have a contracting firm that we hire, and they're responsible and they're insured. It seems that everywhere we turn, we're outsourcing our city. No matter what it is, we're giving up every bit of control that we've had for all of these years. And so much so that we have councilmen now writing 9-page documents with the mayor and bringing it to council. Who's running the city? You and the mayor are sitting here emailing each other, and you're coming up with committee after committee after committee. I don't understand why. I have faith in Mayor Nelson. He has a great reputation, and I quite frankly don't understand why you're participating in this kind of advisory position that you have here. But what you do have here is you certainly don't have disclosure. And this document came from the LEAC committee document, because in it, Mayor Nelson, you found that Bob used the same document. Apparently, it came to my attention that you wrote the recommendation for the LEAC committee, too. It did not come from staff. And in it, Mayor Nelson finds it. He says, you used the same document. This is the language that you used in that. Unbeknownst to me, the councilman wrote another matter that I thought staff wrote. From this, nobody knows that staff didn't write this. So I don't know what's going on here, but we have resolutions here for a law enforcement advisory committee. We have resolutions here for an infrastructure advisory committee. I'm not sure when the staff's going to be able to go home, but we're going to have to add staff. And in this whole process, just so we all know, Councilman Pitts and myself are not on any of these committees, because the suggestion is you have to be on the Budget and Finance committee or the LEAC committee to be on these committees. That's my comments.
Is there anyone from the public would like to speak on this? If not, I'll bring it back to council for further discussion.
I've reviewed this document, and though I appreciate the councilwoman's concerns, I find them to be off point, unfounded, and frankly, I think with a self-serving motivation, not to harness the intellect and incredible experience that our resident architects, engineers, construction folks have, rather to point a bright shiny laser over here and say that there's something wrong. It's almost political theater, to be candid with you. Councilmember Colacott is probably the most conservative person I know, and bond financing would never, and I say never, get across this dais, and certainly get a no from me. I don't think that this suggests it. I think that that's probably a reference from an email pulled out of context, and I'm wondering how we came across these emails. I would assume it's from a public records request. Not sure why we're spending our time doing that as council members rather than talking to each other like adults. But the only issue that I have with respect to this, because I think it's a fantastic idea, anytime we can harness in effect, a free resource from our community, and we have some of the brightest minds in Orange County when it comes down to engineering. I personally know two folks that are scary smart. I mean, just absolutely scary smart, and are willing to volunteer their time. Folks that when I went around and canvassed this community, when I was running for office, people, this idea had already seen some early seeds, so to speak, before it's even in this document, and they thought the idea was fantastic. And I'm puzzled why we would not want to have a free resource. My only issue is I think that 2 members should remain on every committee, regardless. I don't like the idea of pulling 1 member off, so we have a council committee that has 1 city council member. I think historically we've had 2. I think there's a good reason to have 2, and that should remain. Besides that, I think it's a fantastic idea. Caveat, obviously bond financing is I think more of a reference to perhaps some of the dire straits we may be facing if we don't act correctly and prudently and take some of the burden off our staff. I think you kind of talked in circles a bit. First you said that the staff's never going to go home, when in fact this is a vehicle to relieve some of the burden from the staff. You can't have it both ways.
Any further discussion? If not, do I hear a motion on this?
I do.
Yeah.
May I please?
Okay, yes, sure. Any further discussion?
Yes, I read the document too as well, and I was a little surprised, and the reason I was surprised because in your document, Bob, you and Bill, you indicate that most of the stuff is being addressed by the consultants and by plans that we already currently have in place, yet we want to put a committee in place to do what? If we already have plans in place, we've hired professional engineering firms to draft these plans. We're waiting for the storm drainage system proposal that's supposed to come in. And then at that point in time, I'm assuming if we adopt all these different plans that are in existence today, city staff at that point takes on, and I believe there's monies in budgets for future projects, to hire project managers to in fact implement these projects. And we seem to have gone through the budgeting process and budgeted every single dime we've got to infrastructure projects. I don't know how much more we can put in there. So my question is, and a perfect example, we say that our streets are at 83% right now, yet the benchmark for the committee is 76, so we're lowering the bar on our streets. So why would we do that? So I'm concerned about, I think this is worthy. I'm not saying no to a committee or no to your point, Vince, free advice, but we've already paid for advice. We've got city staff here. This sounds more to me like, one of the things I learned at Monterey, which was dangerous, was governance versus management. We're a governing body. We're not a management body. And this smells like management to me. And we need to take heed about that. That guy over there and his staff manage this city. It's up to us to govern. And we're not doing a good job of governing if we're going to take over his job and his team's job. That's what I read in here is we're managing. And it was a hard transition for me, too. I mean, I was going to save this for later, but I come from the private enterprise, and that's all I do all day long is manage. That's how I get results. And it's a hard transition for me to sit up here and not want to manage the city as well. But I've had to learn I've learned a good lesson being as part of this and closing my mouth and letting that man over there do his job, because that's what we're paying him for. And that's what we're paying these guys over here for. But this seems like to me we're moving in the direction of outsourcing and taking over and managing the city and taking it out of the hands of the people that we pay to do it. But we've got plans in place already that I think we've approved and we're implementing at significant cost to the city. But yet we're going to take those and scrap those and go build more with free advice. So that's my opposition to this, and I do agree with her that, you know, I'm concerned about people putting together plans and then being able to bid on something later on. So there better be something stringent in place that you can't bid on anything or do anything, and you better disclose all your family members and your monies and everything else and ties to the public works or whoever that's involved with bidding this, because it's not going to be right. I think this is probably one of the first times that we've encountered something like this where the cities, and correct me if I'm wrong, but where we've encountered something where there might be a possibility of conflict of interest, and how we're going to address that through this plan. And I have to defer to you with that.
Well, the only analogous, Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
The only analogous subcommittee of a professional bent that we have is the Investment Advisory Committee. And there, as we have discussed in the past, there's the issue of whether they have to file something called a Form 700 and for financial disclosure. And under FPPC regulations, given the fact that the IAC does not make final decisions, they're advisory, a number of factors go into that. I mean, I've opined that they don't have to do those Form 700s. I mean, this is not that necessarily, so depending upon how this is structured, we'd have to look at that for conflict of interest reasons.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that because I don't want that to exist in our city. But, you know, I had a couple other questions about, you know, what's the percentage of residents that are impacted by flood insurance? We've got a goal in here of eliminating flood insurance for some of our citizens. How many is that, and what kind of impact are we talking today? Just questions, that's all. And if we can't answer them tonight, then hopefully we can answer them at some point in time. That's all I had. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. Currently, we don't have plans. That's part of the issue. Currently, we have, for example, with our streets, we have a biannual program whereby the contract city engineer does a drive-by inspection and identifies which streets have fallen into such disrepair that they have to be repaired. It's probably the most expensive way that we can manage our streets, and also it results in our streets being some of our streets looking very poor. In fact, as from our street assessment study, we identified a number of streets that are at 50%. What the 76 PCI minimum is that's proposed in the staff or in the agenda report is that a suggestion, and this is just a suggested objective, and that would be up to the committee to develop. But should any of us in this city of Villa Park expect that our streets should be anything other than at least in good condition? We've heard residents come to our dais that have complained about their streets for 20 years without any response by the city or any repair. We need to fix that. We have no plan for maintenance of our storm drains, none at all. We didn't even know where all of our storm drains were a couple of years ago. We're completing a study to identify where our storm drains are and what the condition is. We have absolutely no plan at this point to maintain those facilities. We've,
But we're
Akron
paying
has a.
for- I don't mean to interrupt, but we're paying for a survey and an assessment of all the storm drains.
That's just an identification of the condition. We don't have a plan, we don't have plans for how are we going to most cost-effectively manage the maintenance of those facilities. So that's the idea, is to bring in a group of residents that are professional engineers to help provide, to be a tool available to the city engineer and the city, or city manager, so that they can develop plans to more effectively manage those facilities. It's very complex, very time-consuming, and very expensive, and we have a city manager and a part-time city engineer. So it's, you know, as Councilman Rossini pointed out, this is a way to bring in members of our community with special talents and skills and knowledge to support our city. And it's not outsourcing, it's, you know, like I step in and help out the city, like you step in, like Mayor Nelson steps in. How can we contribute to help run the city better? Not manage the city, that's their responsibility, but provide them with tools and information so that they can do it.
In effect, it's an extra resources, the way I look at it. And I think you raised a good point about the 76. I think the document, as I read it, that's a minimum. So where we have some of our 50s now, nothing can go below the 76. Otherwise, that's a crisis. So in effect, I think the bar is raised because our average is going to be much higher than the 83 it's currently
I
at.
assume we were working on we would eventually work on, based on the budget and everything else, that we had identified the 50 streets and we were in process of going to fix those.
Right. I just want to clarify the wording in the document. The way I understood it now, maybe I'm incorrect. But as I understand it, 76 would be the minimum. So
Exactly.
But I do appreciate your concerns, Robbie, and I've worked both in the public and private sector, and I understand the difference between managing and leading and governing. And you know, we need to have folks that are policymakers and folks that are like Steve and staff that are out there day in and day out doing the business of our city. And I by no means would advocate that this committee do their job. They're simply there to provide advice to the degree that it's helpful, to alleviate some of the burden from Akron, and to assist staff further.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm going to reiterate here that this document was brought to the council under some sort of a secretive nature. Your emails say that. Your words about bond financing are your words and your printed material to the mayor. And nothing you can say will change that. And what I hear right now is we want things for free, for free, for free. Nothing is for free. All right? Nothing. You're reconnecting with people in the industry that you've met for the past 40 years, which tells me you want to give them Villa Park's business. You want them on your committee. I mean, you have not been transparent with the council. You've not been transparent with the staff. And Akram is not taxed. Akram doesn't work by himself. He's a firm. He's an employee at an engineering firm. When we require more engineering people, for lack of a better word, they do the work at the office. They do it out here. Akram doesn't do it all. He's just the person who comes into the office. We call him our city engineer. But when he's gone, we have another person. He's not taxed. If he's taxed, we may be putting too much burden on him, but he's not taxed. But we don't have the money. And you've inferred in this document that this committee already has predetermined that they're going to find a lot of stuff, because you're telling me right now, and the public, that there is a lot of stuff. And you know we can't pay for that. So I find this to be very sneaky. I'm finding that everything that's being brought based on this new policy of that you can't bring something to council without two people now is just starting in committee, the work's being done by the staff or by just the councilman, because the staff doesn't do it anymore. You don't even trust the staff to do this. because you know the staff couldn't do this without the approval of the council. So you did it yourself. And I find that very wrong and to the detriment of the city. Because without those emails, nobody would have known that you were considering bond financing, because that was nowhere in here.
Well, what is proposed is in the black and white of the agenda item. There's no discussion of any role or responsibility for the proposed committee to get in any way get involved with financing of any form. The agenda item stands on its own, irrespective of my personal emails with
Those are not personal.
and speculations with the mayor that, yeah, we're in a fix. Those are my speculations, but that's not policy, and that's not what we're asking the council to vote on tonight. What we're asking is for the council to establish a committee of professional engineering or engineering professionals to provide support to the city staff, much in the same way that LEAC and the Investment Advisory Committee provide support to our city staff in investments and in supporting our crime prevention program.
I think everyone's had a chance to weigh in on this with discussion. So I'd like to know, is there a motion on this?
Do I need to offer a substitute motion for the two members aspect for each committee? Or
Well, there has been no motion made, so you
So
can
No,
make whatever
no
motion.
substitute motion,
I'd like
just
to-
be your motion.
But if I may, Mayor, I don't know, have you invited public comment? I can't remember.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did, okay.
I did invite public comment. Yes. Come right, you have to come up.
If you have this committee.
Your name, please.
Hi, I'm Pam Dunn, 9432 Hazel Circle, Villa Park. If this does pass, and let's say they find a list of items, would the plan then, or the objective be that that committee recommend everything being done at one time? Or is there a time plan that you have in mind? Since we already, as a city, don't we have a time plan for infrastructure repairs. I guess I'm feeling like this is a major conflict and redundancy. So I for the committee itself. So is that the purpose of this? Is for them to gather our experts and make an entire list with the anticipation that everything will be done at once, and therefore it will create a need for a bond? Because I did hear bond funding somewhere. So was that your intent?
My understanding is that if they made that list, then they would do those projects as they could afford them.
As they could afford, not with,
You'd have to then prioritize the projects.
okay, but don't we do that? I guess I'm a little confused, because right now we have a plan, a master plan for those repairs. So many, this year we did this. Do we still have that? We used to have.
Did it in 2010.
We do.
Yeah, we did have it at one time. So you're saying that hasn't been updated, or what is the problem with the 2010?
Yes.
We didn't even know where our storm drains were. We were just completing a study to even identify what the storm drains are and what condition they're in, and what, we're kind of starting at square one of, okay, what do we have out there, and how can we best manage getting everything in order to protect our community?
And Akron can't do that? I guess is my question. I just hate to have more layers of government.
With more and more money, you could hire a consultant. I mean, I'm in consulting. I've worked in consulting for many years. Yeah, you can hire consultants to run your whole city if you've got enough money. But what we're trying to do is use the resources available to us, just like we do with the Investment Advisory Committee and the Law Enforcement Advisory Committee. Get the specialized expertise of some of our residents that are willing to volunteer to help us think through these issues, and how can we best manage it within our resources.
Would Akron sit in on those, being our
He's identified as one of the participants in this group, as well as the city manager.
And I would think the balance of that, considering we do have a 3-2 usually, I think it's only fair if you change some of that, the committees that are existing, to allow the other two to sit somewhere, at least be a participant, so there's some balance we feel here. But again, I guess my question is, if that 10-year plan, where is that 2010?
I have the 10-year plan at home. I didn't bring it because it's pretty thick.
There is a plan.
There is a
because
plan.
When we
It
did
is there.
that,
We do have that
I was
plan.
chair of the CAT committee, and I know that's all in there.
It's
So I'm wondering what happened.
It's there, as well as our strategic business plan.
So
was there,
why,
too.
are we following that plan? Or are you saying that doesn't exist anymore, or isn't implemented?
It could be, that's something that should be provided to this committee to update.
You referred to it, I think, in one of your documents. It's
So
referred to.
I'm asking questions that I think I'm trying to solve. You know, I know we exist and we had plans. I just feel like a lot of redundancy going on here to establish. And I understand your consideration with the Investment Advisory Committee and that participation. But I'm a little concerned about the committee itself. And if they do find a list, and oh my goodness, it's like the sky is falling. They went out and found something. We have to make all these changes, and we have to. I know where that could lead, you know, to a bond. What was the reference for the bond? You wrote that, so what was that bond fund?
Oh, that was just that was in an email from me to Mayor Nelson. Just, you know, this is a big issue, and yeah, the sky is, you know, has fallen already. We had a infrastructure inspection tour last January, and I pointed to the storm drain, 8-foot diameter corrugated metal storm drain behind the resident, and said, you know, those things are not intended to be made out of corrugated metal pipe, and they do fail. And when they fail, the bottoms rust out, they clamshell, and they fail catastrophically. A few days later, that's what we have, and we've got what's potentially $1 million liability.
Now, we
So
have
it's-
600,000 set aside for that.
Well, we do, but there's, who knows how much cost there's going to be, but it's a significant. And, you know, we are completing or have completed a study to identify all of our storm drains and what they are made of, and I assess the condition of those storm drains. So, okay, given that, what do we need to do?
Is that what you have in mind possibly for this committee?
Yeah,
as
they would
well?
review that information. They would review the, you know, work with the city manager and the city engineer to review the pavement assessment report. They'd work with the city manager and the city engineer and review the sanitary sewer condition reports. And it's like, okay, given all that we have to do, how can we best manage these infrastructure elements, and how can we best program it given the resources that we have available, and do it in, you know, hopefully this would be a standing committee, and you'd have continual involvement of the residents to so that there's some continuity as we go forward in helping the city maintain the infrastructure.
I understand that, no.
Okay.
My only suggestion is you change some of the wording to let one of the other committee members on. I think that would help quite a bit, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Back to you, Councilman Procini. You had a motion?
I have one more comment. Back in 2005, the city did a citywide assessment that doesn't end. All of us, every single property has $195 assessed on their property taxes, and it's there every single year to the sewer. In reviewing that, thank you, Councilman Colacott, for yourself reviewing it, because in your emails you did bring up that assessment, which bond financing and assessment, your emails clearly show that you are looking to be the tax man here. And that assessment is there. Within a year, we're going to have a school bond assessment that is going to hit all of our tax bills. It's going to be a large one. Right now, it's just going to be one. They are already talking about a second bond for the elementary schools, and they have a committee that's already formed. Everything you've talked about now is that the sky is falling. The sky's not falling on Villa Park. Storm drain collapsed just as it did on Henderson several years ago, and it got fixed. We're lucky enough that FEMA's paying for this one. But you've not answered the questions when it's come to financing. All you've said is you want is a committee of free advice when we are not deficient in hiring a firm. Akram is not the engineering department. We have a firm. And we rely upon them. They have insurance. It comes with a price. But they're professionals that a government must rely upon. Government cannot rely upon free help. Doesn't work that way. That's why we pay prevailing wages, and we have to pay it. It comes with a price. But based on what you presented here to this council, quite frankly, you're the tax man.
On the contrary.
I'm going to call for the question.
Thank you. Again, my motion is just to keep 2 city council members on each committee, as has been the norm in the past. I just think that's a good check and balance. And I think it should be at the mayor's discretion, as it has been in the past.
Is your motion to approve the committee with those changes?
It is.
Wait, I want to know what the motion is. You've got resolutions in here being changed on other committees.
I think you
Okay,
just heard
you've
it.
got the kitchen sink in here. Okay, this is not just an infrastructure committee. You got a LEAC committee that you gave absolutely no respect for even telling the members you were going to change it. So let's take it separately. Let's take it separately.
Wait, he doesn't have to take it separately. He said he was making a motion to keep 2 members on each committee, which doesn't mean that there's no impact on the LEAC committee. And if he's changing this resolution to have 2 people on it rather than 1.
Let's take it
And do we have a second?
independently.
Do we have a second?
I don't understand the motion.
Well, that is a motion.
I don't understand it.
Well,
Where's,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have a
Point of order. Mayor, I'll second the motion.
Steve, can you read, where's the resolution? I don't understand what he's motioning.
The recommended actions consists of, as in the proposal, I want to say 2 basic, two of them. The first one is to adopt 2 draft resolutions. A, which would be establishing the Infrastructure Advisory Committee. B, to amend the Law Enforcement Advisory Committee membership to be 1 member of the committee, of the council, I'm sorry. The second would be basically to give the committee the work, basically give them direction to go forward, what their purpose would be, their mission, if you will, which is develop a work plan, develop an infrastructure management plan, implement infrastructure management plan, and present annual budget recommendations. They're much more lengthy than I just summarized, but basically that's what's composed in this report that's presented here. If the amendment were to be, as the motion were to be as proposed by Councilman Rossini, it would be to simply adopt the Infrastructure Management Advisory Committee resolution, amending that to reflect 2 members. They would have to be not only advising it where those 2 members come from, because right now,
Section 2, it's in section.
Section 2, it says 1 member is, it would have to be a member of the Community Development and Public Safety Committee. So it only directs where 1 of the committee members, so you'd have to designate where the other one comes from, or omit any reference to where they came from, and just says it has to be 2 council members.
As I stated, and I specifically referenced the resolution 2017-3399, I'd like to leave that to the mayor's discretion, as I believe that's prudent to do so. Have 1 member of the Community Development and Public Safety Committee, and leave the other one as a discretionary.
An open.
Indeed.
Okay, so then the second portion of that motion would be basically what I described as, in my words, the work plan of the mission or the work plan that would be designated for this committee to move forward, which is develop a work plan, develop an infrastructure management plan, et cetera. So those would be the motion as I understand it. Adopt the 1 resolution, adding a second member to the Infrastructure Management Committee, which is an open member. So that resolution would be changed to say it's an open member.
Correct.
And then to adopt the other work plan elements as presented? Is that a
Correct.
fair characterization?
Correct. And then effectively 2017-3398
It's omitted.
is omitted.
It's omitted, there'd be no action taken on that. So the LEAC resolution would not be amended.
And my second is consistent with that.
So is the motion sufficiently clear that the staff has direction they need?
I'll defer the council. Is the council
No,
comfortable?
I have one more comment, if it's okay?
Yeah, you can do it after a
Okay.
second.
Might I suggest, since this was just brought up tonight, I know some of us have had a few days to review it. Some of us have had quite a long time to think through it. There are some changes to this. May I suggest that we wait until September before we vote on this and give it a chance to come back with any additions or changes to this whatsoever? And also give our public the opportunity to review this and look at it and come back with comments. It's summertime. There are a lot of people, you can look around the room, there are a lot of people not here tonight that might be interested in this and may have some weigh-in. So I would suggest that maybe we defer this till September, when people are back from vacations and holidays and school's back in, and people have had a chance to look at this and potentially comment on it.
I think the idea has been floated around Villa Park for long enough. I see no need for that, but I do appreciate his comments.
Vince, who
I'm going,
floated around where?
I'm going to call for the vote, so we can go ahead and vote, okay?
Bill wants to vote. The mayor wants to vote.
So we are voting on the resolution. I'll
Voting on
repeat
the
it.
Do we need to
motion.
make a budget adjustment, though? They're asking for money in this.
They're asking for $250, and that's a budget for materials needed. So I have a discretionary account that I would assume that that's where it would come from, so it's my authority to move it under that money. So I would just assign that $250 would be from that discretionary account that's under my authority. So there would not be a specific budget action made. That would be my interpretation because of the insignificant dollar amount.
It also said that additional funding may be provided by council on request of the committee. So we're assuming with that this committee is going to require funding.
Well, I think one of the recommendations in here is that they, in the second part of the recommended action, it requires an annual budget recommendations be presented by this committee to the council.
So see, they are doing budgeting.
If
This
that's-
committee, it says it right there, this committee is doing budgeting. They're dealing with numbers.
We've already voted on this, so there's no.
We haven't voted on
We
it.
haven't voted yet.
Well,
You pushed your button, we didn't.
I've invited you to vote. If you haven't voted, you're not.
We weren't ready, we're still having
abstaining from
discussion.
voting then.
There was funding,
I've called for the vote.
there was funding. Did you read it?
I don't need to read it. There's been a motion and a second. I'm calling for the vote. If you don't vote, you're abstaining from voting.
Did you get my vote?
You didn't call for the vote.
She did.
Robbie still had a question, he was.
I called for the vote. I said I called for the question. That means we call for the vote. So
I'm
cast your
asking,
votes.
did the vote get called?
It did.
It did, there was, the mayor did rule, and he did call.
So
the
while we
question.
were talking.
Well, it was after, that's appropriate, after everybody had the chance to debate.
Yes.
Now, that's appealable.
That's
like
where
talked
we
about last
need
time.
to know what's going on up here, because if you pushed your button, we don't know that.
We've
Well,
called-
the vote is pending, people can vote or not vote procedurally.
Yeah, vote
that's where
or
we're
not
at.
vote. What's the vote, Steve?
Okay, all votes recorded. Okay, we have 3 votes affirmative, 1 vote no with Councilwoman Fasenelli, and 1 abstention or no vote recorded for Councilman Pitts.
Thank you. We'll move on. Mayor and council members matters. Now's the time to hear from individual council member information items. Starting with Councilwoman Fasenelli.
Nothing.
Councilman Pitts.
Oh, is this where we were talking about the meetings we went to?
Talk about the meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. You're actually required to.
Thank you. There are several things that I attended this month. Obviously, the 4th of July parade was, to bring some light to the conversation. I had a good time. And I cannot imagine not having a John Deere tractor. People made fun of me riding around the streets of Villa Park. And Lieutenant Puckett, thank you for not writing me a citation for riding my tractor. But it was fun to do that. The kids had a good time. We had kids in the trailer with us, and it was good. I also attended the City of Orange fireworks that night. I had the opportunity to meet with Michelle, and I hope I don't butcher her name, McAuliffe, and we spoke about the CERT program here in Villa Park. And she is interested in working with us because we're close neighbors, we're surrounded by Orange, and they have an active program. It was obvious at that event that they really have an active program with a lot of people involved. And it seems like we're somewhat deficient. I can't even get an email from that CERT leader. So it was suggested that the CERT leader attend the OC CERT Mutual monthly meeting, and I forwarded that information to you and also to Councilman Rossini. And I also would suggest that we all sit down with her when we have the opportunity and share information. I'm assuming you all,
I would
two
offer an
follow.
update. I did speak to her, and candidly, she deferred to her command staff after she returned. So she declined to meet with us directly. So her command staff, I placed a call in there, but have not received a response from their command.
Yeah, she said she's quite busy these days because she's quite busy. She's also been charged with the National Night Out planning and so forth. So I also had, but it was great event. A lot of people there. Their community participation is much higher than ours, and I hope that being a part of the foundation, we can change that and get a little bit more community engagement what we do here in Villa Park, because this is a wonderful place. And I look forward to the opportunity to do that. Also attended the ACCOC summer reception in Newport Beach. Had the opportunity to meet with some potential sheriff candidates and really enjoyed that discussion. As a matter of fact, one of them stood there for almost 30 minutes and chatted about potential opportunities to partner together and so forth. So it was a really good conversation. And then attended the League of Cities Council Leadership Workshop and Executive Forum while in Monterey. I have to say the first 2 days were a little bit, or the first day that I attended was a little bit disappointing from a training and learning perspective, but the last day was really good for me. I learned a lot, especially, and I'll bring it up one more time, management versus governance. And it helped me understand better how to be a better council member and provide governance and policy making as opposed to being a doer like I'm used to. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Colacott.
Yes, I attended the concert in the park with the Working Man Band that was sponsored by our Community Services Foundation. It was a great event, great band, great evening. Wish that more residents could turn out, and hopefully we can all work together to get the word out on the next concert, because it's really a great community event. On June 28th and 29th, I attended the Mayors and Council Members Executive Forum that was sponsored by the California League of Cities. And the key sessions that I attended include how to set goals for city managers, performance evaluations, working with an outlier city council member, and successful strategic planning for councils. This really underscored how strategic plans promote the effective governance and improve transparency to the community. And on June 30th, I attended a special workshop entitled Creating a Governance Culture of Civility and Purpose. And the presenters there reinforced the importance of a strategic plan in providing effective governance. So that's my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Rossini.
On July 4th, I attended the parade and saw Councilmember Pitts in his John Deere tractor. And that was a sight to see, let me tell you. I want to thank him for coming out. I saw Councilwoman Fasanelli there. In particular, though, I want to thank the numerous volunteers that made such an amazing event possible, and in particular, Gretchen Ferris. She did a fantastic job of organizing and planning the event. She had a lot of assistance, but she did a fantastic job. And unwittingly, I became a volunteer when my daughter tried to run over the band on her bike, and so I ran beside her and my son and several other children that were first in line. So that was turned out to be a little 3-kilometer run for me. It was good times. Hope I didn't embarrass myself too much. We had a great time. The community came together. The band was great. I can't stress enough that everybody should come out to it, see the different decorations on the bikes, and of course the John Deere tractor. It was a wonderful event, and I hope everybody had a safe and sane 4th of July. And I just want to remind people, please pick safe and sane fireworks. I know the ones that Angel Stadium shoots off are fun, but they belong in Angel Stadium. So I want to thank the Orange County Sheriff's Department and the Orange County Fire Authority who stepped up to handle so many of those calls of the illegal fireworks. And I just hope everybody has a wonderful summer, and be careful. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, I'll give mine. I attended the Villa Park Day at the Orange County Fair. That was Villa Park Day along with Orange and Tustin Day. And also attended the California JPIA Board of Directors meeting, where they elected a president and 3 members to the executive council, and all were incumbents. And I think the president's been there like forever. But they also discussed their strategic plan. I attended a concert in Villa Park with the Working Man's Band, and I toured 2 licensed treatment facilities in the city with City Manager Steve Franks. We thought of these as sober living homes, but they actually are licensed treatment facilities that are regulated by the state with periodic inspections. They're very impressive facilities and appear to be very well-run organization. And I also attended the League of Cities Mayor and Council Members Executive Forum and the Mayor and Council Members Advanced Workshop. The 2 sessions in particular interest to me was how to set goals for city managers' performance evaluation, which we're using in our Human Resource Committee, and successful strategic planning for councils. Culver City are working together with an outside facilitator, want to determine if the council and city staff could reach an agreement on what city should become over the next 5 years. So they went through a strategic planning process with outside facilitator and talked about it and what benefit it was to their city. The results was development of 6 priorities that would guide the council, staff, and residents into the future. And on the last day that Robbie was talking about, the Exceptional Council for Exceptional Times, creating a government civility and purpose, they talked about Exceptional Council, high performing, civil, and unified in service to their communities. And so I learned some approaches to address challenges, to creating a culture of trust and collaboration, and operating with decorum to best serve the public. And those were the things that I participated in the last month. But I want to remind everyone about an upcoming strategic planning community forum. I want you to mark your calendars for a public strategic planning workshop on Wednesday, August the 30th at 6 p.m. in the Villa Park City Hall. The workshop is to take public testimony and ideas for inclusion in the city's strategic plan, including in the city's vision, the city's strengths and weaknesses, and potential opportunities and threats to the city's future. So it's been an opportunity for the public to have an input in our strategic planning process, and I would encourage all of you to come out to that. And that concludes my report. And if there's nothing further.
I'd just like to mention, I know that you toured the 2 facilities.
Yes.
But I was the one who was awoken at 6:30 in the morning with complaints about one of those home on Briley with pictures, which I have forwarded to our city manager for the record.
Okay. We toured them and we were impressed.
Yes, I've seen them myself also, but the residents text me with the pictures, so the city manager has records of them.
Is there anything else?
One quick thing?
Yes.
I failed to do it. I'm going to put him on the spot, but I wanted to recognize that in the audience tonight is our newly elected president of Villa Park Rotary. Chad, you want to stand up maybe and tell us a couple seconds about you? And
did you forget about him?
Congratulations.
About him?
You'll live to regret it.
I just came to say to participate, and actually, Robbie asked if I wanted to be introduced, and I said no. But
Like I said, you'll live to regret it.
that's why everybody gets to know who you are.
excellent. No, I'm happy to be here, and I look forward to a productive year in Rotary.
You know, I have to say, Chad, I'm really impressed with the leadership that you've brought to the Rotary this year. Even some things where you put your agenda up on the board and we look at it, you come prepared, and it's really refreshing that you do that. And I'm really looking forward to serving with you in our community. So thank you.
And Chet, I was impressed with the gala you put on over in Anaheim Hills.
Oh, thank you very much.
I was there, and I was particularly impressed with the singer that you brought all the way from somewhere. I've forgotten where, from
She
France.
was from Berlin.
Berlin,
Actually, she's originally
from Berlin.
from Palos Verdes, and
Yeah.
I grew up. So I'd known her for a long time, but currently in the opera.
But you did a fantastic job.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well done.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Sorry to put you on the spot.
If there's nothing else, then I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Let me see if my car's here.
What's that?
I need to find.